At the beginning of the movie, we see a demonic creature that was first summoned to Earth in 1944. The creature was destined to wage wars and bring chaos. However, this child of hell was soon rescued by kind men who taught him about righteousness and honor. Sometime later, the demonic entity, soon to be known as Hellboy, was surrounded by scientists and researchers who went on to form the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense, also known as the BPRD. This international organization protects the world from all sorts of supernatural threats. The movie begins in the middle of an unspecified mission of the BPRD. A massive cave-like area can be seen. It's a very creepy place with absolutely no hint of sunshine. Just then, Abe Sapien, a humanoid reptilian creature, appears on the screen. He's there with a pyrokinetic woman named Liz Sherman and Hellboy. All of them are members of the BPRD and are on a confidential yet dangerous mission. Moving forward, Abe and Sherman enter a strange room and find the skeleton of Agent Hamilton. They start to move around, but that's when Abe steps on a tile that automatically sinks. Suddenly, the walls around them start sliding down, revealing a bunch of zombies. However, they don't seem to be moving. Just then, Hellboy enters the room while sitting on the back of an enormous zombie bat. Liz and Abe immediately start shooting at the bat, but it's of no use. Soon enough, all the zombies come alive and the three start battling. The group is eventually able to defeat their opponents when Liz unleashes her pyrokinetic powers, despite the fact that she is still unsure of her ability to control her powers. On the other hand, a Japanese folklore expert, Professor Sakai, has obtained an ancient scroll. However, it's no ordinary manuscript. Rather, it contains the myth of two demonic brothers known as Thunder and Lightning. Sakai breaks the chains present before him and is astonished by the scroll. He quickly opens it and reads it out. The scroll contains the story of the two brothers of the dragons, Thunder and Lightning. It turns out that hundreds of years ago, the brothers roamed the earth. Together, they unleashed storms on the lands of a Japanese lord. In exchange for mercy, the lord, otherwise also known as the daimyo, promised to give the demons his beautiful daughter. However, one of the daimyo's samurai warriors was deeply in love with the daughter. Because of this, he hid her in a shrine deep in the woods to protect her so that when the demons came to collect their prize, they wouldn't be able to find her. The samurai was ready to do just about anything to protect his love. Armed with the Sword of Storms, a mystical sword charged with an ancient spell to defeat Thunder and Lightning, the warrior fought the brothers bravely and trapped both of their spirits in the sword. But even when his lands and daughter had been saved, the daimyo was not pleased. This is due to the fact that the warrior's actions made the lord break his promise. Soon after, the samurai went back to the shrine and spent all his time with his love, never to return. However, daimyo wasn't happy with this, so he begged the gods to ease his pain. To his surprise, they answered. So in an act of vengeance, the Japanese lord summoned the gods to turn the warrior into stone, after which he... Back to current-day Japan. Professor Sakai has been possessed by the spirits of Thunder and Lightning while reading the scroll. He stumbles back and falls to the ground. However, he regains his posture soon and starts reading the scroll again. The demonic brothers then send the professor in search of the mystical sword. As he's possessed, Sakai goes on to attack the sword collector who currently owns the Sword of Swords. This incident causes the BPRD to be alerted. To investigate the issue, Hellboy, Kate Corrigan, and a psychic named Russell Thorne are called in. While conversing on a flight with one another, Liz apologizes for almost burning them all down before. Abe and Hellboy reply that it's okay and continue their flight. They finally land and reach the place. There, they start investigating, and that's when Haramade, the sword collector, shows them the footage of Sakai. They are watching the footage when Russell tries to snatch the sword from Haramade while saying that he's ruining a delicate, psychic inquiry. Kate then separates the two and asks Russell to calm down. That's when Hellboy picks up a discarded katana and suddenly vanishes to another dimension that is very similar to ancient Japan. Hellboy starts looking around the place when he sees a kitsune run into a forest. He instantly follows it and sees the kitsune sitting on a rock. That's when the kitsune tells Hellboy that the sword he holds is the Sword of Storms. After saying this, the kitsune vanishes. A while later, Hellboy goes deeper into the forest and soon sees the shrine where the lord's daughter had been hidden. He quickly enters the shrine only to see the daughter's ghost crying over the deceased samurai warrior. After witnessing the pitiful scene, Hellboy turns back to go out but is stopped when the ghost calls him her love. She then asks him why he never came for her. This shocks Hellboy, so he stays quiet while the ghost continues weeping. She goes on to tell him that when her father came to eliminate her, she waited for him. However, he never came and she lost her life. The ghost starts crying once again. Confused, Hellboy tries to tell her that she got the wrong person, but she just disappears before he can say anything. He then goes out of the temple to see the kitsune once again. However, this time the kitsune tells Hellboy that he is on a dangerous path and asks him to protect the sword. He also advises Hellboy to keep moving east toward the rising sun. The scene then shifts to Abe and Liz, who are ordering their agents to get their satellite working so that they can track Hellboy. However, they soon realize that he is not on their planet anymore. The two then inform Kate about this on the phone, as she had seen Hellboy disappear right before her. Just then, Kate finds a scroll. She immediately tells Russell that the scroll happens to be one of the 18 scrolls of the Lost Monks. Every so often you run across one of them and it's usually a sign of something bad happening. This makes the two realize that they need to find Hellboy soon. On the other hand, a man is seen throwing out trash. While he's working, he sees Sakai on the side and yells at him to get lost. That's when Sakai looks up. His face is all red now that he has been completely possessed. All sorts of lightning bolts appear around him and the man before him instantly runs away. Back in ancient Japan, Hellboy is traveling through the forest when he sees 3 paths. Disgruntled, he sits down and leans on a tree. However, he grows tired and falls asleep soon. Sometime later, he gets woken up after getting hit by a stick. Hellboy gets annoyed and asks the man before him why he hit him. That's when the man says that it's too dangerous outside. After some contemplation, he offers Hellboy to sleep in his house for the night. Hellboy agrees and enters the man's house only to see a bunch of people talking. He isn't interested in their talk, so he asks the man if he can sleep already. Just as he's about to leave, one of the ladies present there lowers her fan to show her sharp teeth. Hellboy is confused by everything going on around him but tries to stay calm. He enters a room and sees the picture of thunder. Because of this, he doesn't sleep but rather stays alert with the sword in his hand. That's when he notices something flying around and goes to the living room. There, he sees the 5 people from earlier now missing their heads. The strangest fact about all this is that not even a speck of blood could be seen on the ground. Having no idea what to do, Hellboy dumps the headless bodies into a nearby river, and there, he hears some people talking. It turns out that the man who invited Hellboy had been planning to eat him. Hellboy quickly hides behind a tree and listens in on the man's conversation. That's when he notices that all their bodies are gone. While listening to the man's plan, another head suddenly comes around and informs the others about Hellboy's disappearance. They then come to find out that their bodies are missing as well. Desperate, the heads now start to emit some sort of weird light through their eyes. They're doing this in order to spot Hellboy in the dark. Just as the woman's head finds Hellboy, he shoots her. Soon enough, he shoots all of them. However, it doesn't work, so he takes a branch and throws the heads far away. After some time, he tells the heads that the sun has come up. The heads then quickly disintegrate and not even their skulls are left. Meanwhile, Liz and Abe are now searching for ways to find Hellboy. Just then, they find out about massive earthquakes and storms that the two brothers, Lightning and Thunder, are creating. They're doing this in order to create more chaos in the world. Having no other way out, Liz and Abe plan to go to Japan as well since they're the good guys. On the other hand, Hellboy continues on his way when he hears a melodious tune. He follows it and sees a beautiful woman playing an instrument. He then notices the white strings turning red from blood. The woman quickly spots Hellboy and asks him to stay, but he simply replies that he can't. He then tries to move on but is stopped by a bunch of spider webs trying to pick him up. The spiders there then steal the Sword of Storms. Meanwhile, the woman playing the instrument transforms into a giant spider with only the head and torso of a lady. Hellboy sees this and quickly breaks out of the web. The Spider-Woman tries to stop him, but is unsuccessful. Hellboy eventually escapes from the spider webs and retrieves the sword. He then starts running away with the giant spider still chasing after him. Finally, the giant spider comes to a part of the forest she can no longer pass through, so she lets out one last breath of green fire. However, Hellboy dodges it and just continues on his way. The scene then shifts to Abe and Liz, who are now on a flight to Japan. Just then, they see a giant black cloud. They then face turbulence and their plane gets hit by lightning. The two crash into an ocean and the plane break apart. Luckily, Abe and Liz make it out alive and swim up to the surface. However, that's when they realize that they are stranded in the middle of nowhere. On the other hand, Hellboy encounters a man who seems to be throwing cucumbers into a lake. Soon after, the man tells him that a monster lives under the lake and that it has eaten many of his family. He then claims that he carves his remaining family's name on cucumbers and throws it in the lake to spare them. Just then, a hand emerges from the lake and grabs Hellboy, dragging him in. Hellboy is stunned, but starts fighting the monster underwater. He quickly defeats the monster. After the victory, the man from earlier requests Hellboy to ask the monster some questions as he has beaten it. Hellboy agrees and asks the monster how he can get home. Defeated, the monster tells Hellboy to break the sword and free the demons. That's the only way he can go home. Hellboy then asks how to stop the demons, but the monster is already deceased. With Abe and Liz, they finally get shelter after seeing the same kitsune Hellboy saw earlier. There, the kitsune asks them to follow it and they end up in another cave. The two enter the cave but they don't see the kitsune anymore. They walk further and that's when they encounter an old lady. The old lady tells Liz that if the brothers come back to Earth, the world will end. Just then, the statues of the demon brothers start glowing and suddenly, they come to life. All different monsters are now awakened, causing a disaster. Meanwhile, Hellboy is still finding his way through the forest when a bunch of Rokurokubai surrounds him with their necks telling him to break the sword and set the demons free. He quickly steps back but falls down a cliff where he ends up seeing a bunch of tombs. On the other hand, the old lady asks Liz and Abe to defeat the dragons and save their friends. However, when they ask her for any hints on how to do that, she just gives them a creepy smile. Professor Sakai, in the meantime, has gone to the shrine where the daimyo eliminated his daughter. Russell quickly realizes this and tells Kate that Sakai is too close. However, Kate doesn't understand. She then goes on to open the door. To her surprise, she sees a pair of slippers and an umbrella with eyes. Kate lets them in and they enter. They start saying something, but it's hardly understandable. However, instead of helping them, the spirit artifacts start attacking them. They soon break out and Russell tells Kate that Sakai has already reached the shrine from the folktale. Back in ancient Japan, Hellboy is walking through a cemetery when he sees the daimyo's daughter crying again. Just then, the kitsune appears and tells Hellboy to protect the sword. Hellboy then watches as the kitsune vanishes, after which he continues on his way. That's when a giant skeleton rises from the ground. Hellboy starts running again and he is now about to fall off a cliff. Suddenly, more skeletons rise from behind him, which causes Hellboy to shoot them one by one. He is soon surrounded by a bunch of skeletons. They all group around him and trap him. However, Hellboy doesn't give up and starts fighting them again. Suddenly, another giant monster appears out of nowhere and starts attacking him. On the other hand, Abe is underwater when a shark swims in his direction. The shark is about to attack him when another monster eats it. Abe quickly goes back to the land where Liz is waiting for him. After a while, he goes into the water again and lures the monster out. Just then, Liz uses her powers to defeat the monster. After some fighting, she thinks the monster is defeated, but it rises again. This angers Liz and so she completely burns the demon and the land around her. Despite all this, the monster rises once again. Meanwhile, Hellboy is still fighting the giant monster. He throws it on the ground and starts jumping on it with his sword. However, that's when the monster just disappears and the sword hits a statue. Unfortunately, it breaks. Hellboy then remembers the words of the kitsune saying that only the sword carrier can break the sword. He then looks at the statue to see that it is none other than the samurai himself who had been turned to stone. Hellboy finally returns to his universe and sees the sword on the ground with blood forming around him. He also sees Kate and Russell along with Sakai. Soon, Hellboy notices that Sakai is acting weird. That's when they all realize that the demon brothers have now found their way back to Earth. Because of this, Sakai gets really sick and collapses on the ground. The two brothers appear on Earth and start combining their powers. They proceed to form a big ball of energy in the sky. Soon, numerous dark clouds surround the skies. The demons are about to summon their powers when Hellboy hits one of them. That's when the other one calls him a stupid, ugly monkey demon. This enrages Hellboy and so he starts shooting the demons again and again. Just then, Sakai wakes up. He is shocked to see the disaster in front of him. Meanwhile, Hellboy continues fighting the demons. He has tears all over his clothes, but continues to fight. He then picks up all the broken pieces of the sword. This causes the demon's spirits to be sucked back in. Moreover, the monster that Abe and Liz were fighting also collapses as it had been awakened by the spirits of the demon brothers. Now, Kate gets possessed by the spirit of daimyo's daughter. She proceeds to go forward and kneels down. Meanwhile, Russell gets possessed by the spirit of the daimyo. He is about to attack Kate, but that's when Hellboy throws the statue of the samurai at Russell. This causes the two of them to get back to normal. Afterward, the samurai's spirit appears from behind Hellboy, and the daughter's spirit sees him. The lovers have a happy reunion. However, the spirit of the Japanese lord isn't happy about this and so he tries to attack them once again. Seeing this, Hellboy asks the daimyo to forgive them even though they're all ghosts now. The daimyo thinks about it for a while, and finally agrees. Soon, the lord's spirit disappears and so does the couple. After everything is sorted, the group eventually goes to get some breakfast. That's where Hellboy sees the old woman who Abe and Liz had met. The old woman winks at him, but he doesn't get it. Much to his surprise, she actually turns into a kitsune. Hellboy finally understands everything. The kitsune soon disappears, and he too follows the others.